Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Cloud Wars Live. We are exploring the digital revolution and the impact it is having on so many parts of our lives. We're delighted to introduce a new monthly guest, new member of our digital all-star team. Bridget Courneya is the editor of online media at Dynamic Communities. Dynamic Communities is a very cool event and content organization that's going to be the partner with Cloud Wars for the June 23rd Industry Cloud Battleground. Bridget, welcome to Cloud Wars Live.
Hi, Bob. Thanks so much for having me. And you were very close. The last name is actually Courneya. And my husband affectionately says this, corny, eh? Like a Canadian would be saying corny, eh? But you were close.
I left out the A in there. I'll say Courneya. I apologize.
That's all right.
Wow. Okay, the only way our conversation could go from here, Bridget, is up. So
that's right. We're starting off with a bang.
That's right. Thanks for grounding me appropriately, I think, here at the beginning. So Bridget, editor of online media, Dynamic Communities, has a very, very busy, full slate of things to talk about here. You see all of it. You're responsible for a great deal. You make it happen. So what's going on? What are the hot things going on that you'd like to chat about today?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, it's a pleasure to be talking with you, Bob. This is definitely the highlight of my day. Most of my day job is looking at, reading, reviewing, producing content that's relevant in the business tech world, and helping others have a voice in that conversation as well. Dynamic Communities, we're rooted in and helping folks get connected with great information and having a seat at that table. So I've been with Dynamic Communities a little over 2 years and some change, I like to say. And my role was actually community manager. So I worked with folks from the starting positions of their roles in various, mainly Microsoft stacks. So that's most of I guess, my background in the tech space. Now we do a lot more than just that, as you can see at mydacfeed.com. And it's been a really fun evolution, but learning a lot every day, and thankfully a lot of voices to learn from, such as yourself. So that's cool.
Bridget, just one more detail here, please. You've mentioned that URL a couple times. Please mention that and sort of what are the components within that mydacfeed.com.
Sure. So mydacfeed is a pretty rapidly new space from not just the Microsoft stack, but beyond that. While I said we were rooted in that kind of our legacy part of our business, mydacfeed.com is a space that you can create your own content and engage with others around topics that you find pertinent to you. And then a huge feature about mydacfeed.com is the ability to personalize your feed and get connected with relevant topics, and find like-minded voices. And we refer to this as the acceleration economy quite often. About, we're seeing this drive to be connected with more pertinent content, and help us make decisions faster. And you can see that in all sorts of examples, looking to make a reservation with Open Table, or get your food faster from one of the many, Uber Eats or Grubhub, or all those things out there. We want quality, as well as efficiency and speed. And same goes with getting access to great content and helping to make a decision faster and more accurately for your business.
Yes, so the and then DAC is
DAC, yeah. So Decision Acceleration Cloud is what that's short for. So mydacfeed.com, and there's always new things to soak in there. And then we also have a number of events that take place live and on demand. One of them is our binge programs, and you are actually teaming up with us as a partnership for our Industry Cloud Battleground, end of June. So excited about that.
Yeah, I tell you, Bridget, there's so many things happening so fast, and when you talk about that, the acceleration economy, I couldn't agree with you more. And
Mm,
the pace of business has been picking up a lot lately. Now, sometimes people say, "Why is that happening?" Or, I'm not sure I see that. And then we flip it around to our personal lives, either as consumers or business people. Uh, it's just hard to fathom that not that long ago, companies would say like, okay, I spent a year doing research. Now we're going to go in the labs, cook a couple things up. We'll test market some of them in another year. Well, the world doesn't work like that anymore. It
mhm.
is, sort of fire, ready, aim, one of those things. And we're adapting to that. So this notion of speed, I think that is going to be, in some ways, the defining contribution of the cloud to the world of business. The ability for companies to see things faster, analyze things faster, execute faster, see new insights, plan where they're headed. And so I think it's great. And it's one of the reasons why I was so excited about doing the partnership with Dynamic Communities, because you folks embrace that notion of speed as well. So what do you think this industry cloud battleground, you've been through some Dynamic Communities events before, what's going to spin out of this, do you think, Bridget?
I think we're listening a lot about what people are wanting, and I don't think we're the only ones out there. With Microsoft's recent adjustment from some of their reorganizational structures, which you mentioned not that long ago, from Cloud Wars perspective and that lens, which love that piece, by the way. They I think we're starting to see that people want to understand where things are going, and that there's a lot to learn as it pertains to what they can do in their vertical industry. So we're listening to that, and then we're also trying to help deliver that in a really concise way, following in lines with that acceleration economy, that people want it faster and more effectively so they can apply it. So I really think that will be one of the biggest takeaways, is quickly understanding maybe a new concept to a lot of people, and then having some tools that they can put in place and make some educated decisions for their business. So yes, that's what I would say to that. I think there's probably much more, but yeah, we're building that out as we speak.
Yeah, Bridget, that I think I have never seen a movement quite like this in the tech industry, right? You got these very independent minded companies, right? Very opportunistic, very growth oriented, and increasingly more customer focused, right? They've always said they're customer focused, but I think what, especially around some of this cloud stuff, these big tech companies were driven early by what they happen to have. What did they
Mhm.
get in acquisition? What were they able to create or flip over from the on-premises model to this? And then they try to convince people to buy what I have because, well, it's what I have. I don't have
Mhm.
anything else. So I'm going to rationalize that to say this is what you ought to buy. But in the past 2 or 3 years, I think the big tech companies have done a phenomenal job of starting to fill out their set of capabilities more in line with what customers want. And I think the ultimate culmination of that is what's going on with the industry clouds, right? Because there's been this drumbeat, right, for businesses in every industry that said you got to move faster, new engagement models, new revenue models, blah, 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 blah. But they were saying, okay, I'm ready to do that, but I've just got these sort of 20th century-ish type tools, and they're not going to work as I cross into this new frontier. So bammo, up come these industry clouds. And I just think it's going to be wild to see how the different tech vendors try to position those, and
Mhm.
then the feedback loop that will emerge between the customers and the tech vendors, refining these, in some ways customizing them. I just think it's going to be an enormously positive and growth oriented future here. And I think that's, again, why we're so delighted about being able to do this event with you.
Yeah, and you mentioned an interesting word there, which is feedback loop, and I think seeing this emergence, being rooted in the user group space, in the Microsoft stack. That's our legacy. But there was such a value in that community to have a feedback loop between the creator of the tool and the people that use that. And having that kind of relationship being symbiotic rather than saying, here's the tool, you fit your business to the tool, that's not really that's not how it's going in a modern world. And I think a lot of businesses are buying those products that are a little bit more symbiotic, that they feel like they have a relationship to that, what that tool is going to provide to them, rather than they have to create their business around the tool.
And Bridget, I think there's that linkage that you've just described so well between the tech vendors and the companies that buy it. Then I think it swings forward or upstream, downstream, substream into those businesses' customers, right? It's going to allow more co-creation of products between either the end consumer or the next level business, back with the businesses that are buying and deploying these industry clouds. I mean, those things are being built in, because it's not the old thing where it was the seller that happened to hold all the power in the buyer-seller equation. It's definitely tipped over toward the buyer. And I think more buyers want to say, wait a minute, I want to buy a bike, but I want to be able to have great input into the type of seat, the type of wheels, the brakes, how many this, that, colors, color-coded rims.
Right, because they're looking for that competitive advantage too, and to differentiate as well. So I think it bleeds into all levels. Absolutely.
And I think that's wild. And I know, Bridget, you had mentioned the reorg at Microsoft, which I just thought was very cool. They had, so it seems like, my sense of it, I'd love to hear what you think is, but they really had, as most tech companies do, they said, I got this product line over here, then it's got a neighbor next to it here. They're kind of similar, but they're different. Then the next one here, and the next one here, and the next. So Microsoft took 6 different separate product groups, and they've rolled them all up into one now under Alyssa Taylor. And so that's Dynamics 365, Power Platform, Industries, which are, all relatively sort of swimming in the same pool. But then they threw in data, AI, and mixed reality. And I think it's very much one of those things driven by, this is how customers are looking at this mix of products and services. I think it's a very good, positive, forward-looking thing, not just for Microsoft and its customers, but the industry overall.
Yeah, and I think also the emergence of the citizen developer, while it's kind of a buzzword, I think some of those low-code, no-code tools are giving some of the power back to their employees. And that's creating, I think, a new environment that having that reorg all within that area would, I think there's more that could come out of that.
Bridget, that you just mentioned the low code, no code thing, and it's been sort of a fringy, almost like dreamy type of thing around the tech industry for some time, but it seems now that it's become quite real.
Oh, completely. So when I first started with dynamic communities around some years ago, I worked with the Power Platform stack, and I mean, those are case in point, your citizen developers. And what was so intriguing about that space was that people were finding they could use a tool that it was available to their business, and and the potential for them to make a business impact. The power was back on that individual. And that is pretty darn empowering, for an analyst who maybe felt like they've been using antiquated systems and trying to show that if you do things this way, or report this way, or use a Power App to connect your system, maybe a system that doesn't really work as well, and it offers a lot of benefit for that individual on how they can contribute to the organization. But then affordability wise, for an organization that's maybe trying to make a step towards a bigger step for themselves as an organization, it's a pretty intriguing thought process.
Yeah. And Bridget, I have a feeling that, as has happened throughout history, we tend to look back 10, 20, 30 years and say, what the heck were those people thinking? Why did they do it that way? Well, they did it that way because at the time it was the best thing possible. But I suspect that there'll be, not too far from now, a few years from now, especially young people getting into the workforce, they'll say, wait a minute, I read this book. It must have been like a science fiction book because it said companies used to do this thing where they set up a business case. Then they gave it to somebody who's called a business analyst. That person would take it over to the development team. The development team would sit on it for a couple months, put it in a queue. The work back business analyst said, great, you can have this thing. It'll be done in 20 months. It would just seem unfathomable. But that's one of the big factors in this whole acceleration economy, right? That we're eliminating 19 and a half of those 20 months.
Yeah. And you're creating a whole new process that's more streamlined, and you're using a tool to do it. But really, I feel like I say this all the time, that it really comes down to the process, and the tools to help you get there is great. The tools will always change and evolve, and I think that's why we have a cloud war and a battleground. But the process and diving into what that means, I think that's the meat of it. And if there's an individual in your company that's trying to help with streamline a process, or maybe take some of the time out of the be able to create something that helps meet their bottom line, I think businesses are going to do that.
Yeah, those are going to become the heroes in more and more organizations. So Bridget, I know when you and I had spoken recently, there was some news recently about the healthcare IT giant Cerner up for play. At least, these some unsubstantiated rumors pointed toward, whether it could be Oracle, SAP, Salesforce, perhaps Google Cloud might be interested in acquiring Cerner.
Yeah.
And, I wonder if you have some thoughts on that and, what this would mean in this whole emergence of the industry cloud.
It is interesting to see the competitive nature between companies for really strong processes that have been working for a long time. I've noticed there's a little less of where they're going to try to recreate the wheel and recreate a really good idea. And competing for something that works and has such a substantive base of clients and a software solution that works. I'm not terribly surprised that Cerner is kind of being tossed in the middle of some big giants at play. And I think we saw something similar when Microsoft acquired Nuance, which was their second largest acquisition compared to LinkedIn. So I think, Microsoft's ambitions in the healthcare space is pretty evident. But considering they had a recent investment, large investment with Nuance, I'm not sure who might come out on top there.
Yeah, it is a wild time, right? And so these companies, Bridget, you mentioned they paid $20 billion for Nuance. I think Nuance's revenue it's in the range of $1.3 billion. So, what is that, 17, 18 times revenue? So Nuance itself is not growing on its own, but Microsoft feels like it can be, and its AI tools can have just a massive impact on what Microsoft's doing. And then I wonder if the case with Cerner, while it might seem, as you said, that makes a great deal of sense, like they already have this, are they going to go Cerner be of interest? But Satya Nadella again has said a couple of times, he said, we have an industry first focus. Healthcare is the most important industry right now. So he's said that publicly. And, Microsoft doesn't do little things, and they don't do anything in little ways. So it's possible. But I think the larger trend there, right, is going to be what Cerner represents. Lots of these companies that could get snapped up by the bigger tech players.
Yes, I think you're definitely right there. And you absolutely were right. Satya Nadella did say that because it's in your piece. And I overlooked that one. But yeah, it is becoming a huge a mission of theirs, to the point that they have a whole branded name and identity around it. I think it's Microsoft for Healthcare or something of that nature.
Bridget, I just think it's wild though, right? That tech companies are generally pretty careful about, right? There's always different things percolating up and down in the company, but for the parent tech companies, right? The big at the corporate level, they don't want to be perceived as, swinging and swaying too much in the market, right? They want to be, we're steady, solid. Here's where we are. Here's the promises we've made. So at the end of February, it's just over 3 months ago when Nadella said we now have an industry first focus. That was striking because he's not saying we're going to devote more time and attention to it, anything like that. He was saying, man, this is the big thing now for us, right? And then this consolidation of a number of their business units under Alyssa Taylor, who leads industries. So we see them not just proclaiming this is our new position, but they're starting to align the pieces under it. And I think these acquisition, the news, I really think this is going to, become sort of the hunting season for these small and mid-sized vertical industry companies.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I think we have seen that absolutely with Satya's leadership, that when they do proclaim something, they do follow through on that, and I think that it's a prevalent point, and I even saw it with some of the innovations from Teams. So it was just like basic everyday tool that I use with Teams, but some of the innovations that they developed so rapidly in the times of COVID in front of us, and trying to adapt to a more remote workforce, and some of those challenges, a lot of companies had to adapt really, really quickly, and to turn to a tool that a lot of them already use. Teams was one of those that I think got such rapid adoption, and even with Dataverse, which is the data set that they can use Power Apps. And I mean, all of that happened really, really quickly.
Yeah. And Bridget, didn't you mentioned Teams? I think it's been fascinating how Microsoft's trying to position that as what they've described it, connecting the front office and the back office, which is, when I've chatted about some, I think those are antiquated terms. And perhaps this technological connection between the two with Teams will start to tear down the walls between the back and the front office, right? Instead, let it be one office for the customer throughout here. So, so much going on there with Microsoft. Salesforce is, I think, as we head into the industry cloud battleground in 3 weeks, I have Salesforce as number one on the industry cloud top 10 for a number of reasons. One of which is they say from 7 months ago, they said they had a $2 billion annualized revenue run rate for their industry cloud business. So that could be, at the rate Salesforce is growing, close to 2.5 billion or so. Then Google Cloud is doing some remarkable things. Oracle, SAP Infor, Microsoft's number 6, IBM number 7, doing some fun stuff. Then ServiceNow, Workday, and Amazon. So what are you going to be looking for at the industry cloud battleground? What should people expect?
Well, we have 5 questions that we are trying to learn from folks, and using those questions as kind of our source to not compare them and rank them. We're really just trying to be the informational translator, if you will, of what are all these tools out there, what should you be paying attention to. So the 5 questions, I'll try to sum them up pretty quickly here, but one is about what is your biggest challenge that customers are facing, and that your industry solutions will address. And I think this is a big one for a lot of folks who are trying to compare their challenges with other challenges and try to see what matches and what's worth their time and investment. The second one is all about business executives, that they're really swamped with making these digital transformation initiatives. So wanting to know how they fit to those top priorities. Third is around ML and AI. How do those two innovations play into your industry solutions? I think that's on top of people's minds right now, is trying to be in front of that curve and use a solution that has that, and wondering how is the next thing. And then fourth is around integrating some of the code into enterprise apps with industry clouds. And then the fifth is all around enabling customers to co-create new solutions. So you mentioned this a few times about customers having that relationship. Well, not just having a relationship, but having that enablement to co-create based on the industry cloud is huge for a lot of companies.
Well, Bridget, thanks for that overview. And I know that since I've been the one asking you all these questions, you've got a question for me, and we'll get to that in just a second. But first, I just wanted to offer a word from our sponsor, BMC. BMC wants to know, is your business on its A game? That's when systems are intelligent by learning from markets, where automation is paramount yet effortless, and when technology and people work as one in an enterprise. The A game is your business at its absolute best. BMC calls this the autonomous digital enterprise. Find out more at bmc.com/A-game. All right, Bridget, so I've tried to buy myself 30 seconds of time to figure out what is Bridget going to ask me, but now I'm
Well,
ready.
that's just it. I'm not sure what to ask you, but I guess I'll choose the cloud industry battleground that we have coming up. What are you most excited about for that event?
Yeah, Bridget, I think there's been an ongoing maturation among the cloud vendors, and some are a little better at it than others, but often companies founded by software engineers, run by software engineers, cultures dominated by software engineers, and sometimes when they describe the value of what they're creating, it is software engineer centric instead of being customer centric. So I hope that this move toward the tech companies talking about the great stuff they've made in the context of what customers want and need. I hope that as you outlined those 5 questions, I hope that each of the participants, the cloud companies that will be participating in the industry cloud battleground, will address those from the point of what customers want and need, and talk less and less about their internal stuff, which is all wonderful, but talk more and more about the business problems, the opportunities, the growth, the innovation that these new tools are going to help businesses in every industry be able to generate and sustain and move forward into a very exciting future.
Well said.
So, not that I have high hopes or anything for the event, but just something like that.
Yeah, just a little bit of cracking the nut on those big questions there.
Yeah. No, I really think we're going to hit that off, and it was one of the reasons why John Seifert, the CEO at Dynamic Communities, had said we want to have a level playing field. We'll offer these 5 questions. Everybody will be able to address the same ones, and then they'll have 20 minutes to describe this, and they can articulate their thoughts and ideas in any way they'd like. But my hope is that it'll be customer centric, some examples there of showing how businesses are able to do things that they could never do before, and that more and more the delight and dazzlement of their customers is rising with these new custom built, purpose built tools that are coming out. So it should be fun. It's only 3 weeks away.
Oh yes, rapidly approaching, working hard behind the scenes, and we're excited to see you there, Bob.
Same here, Bridget. Well, Bridget, thank you for joining up with the Digital All-Stars and being one of our monthly guests here on Cloud Wars Live. This has been terrific.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure here as well, and we'll see you next time.
All right, and before I go, could I try to redeem myself? Thank you so much, Bridget Courneya.
You did it. Oh, you're a pro, just like that.
Thank you so much. Courneya, but I'll remember that since you put that. Thanks, Bridget. And thanks to all of you for being with us here at Cloud Wars Live. We hope summer's off to a good start for you, and we look forward to seeing you again soon, perhaps around June 23rd for the Industry Cloud Battleground. See you next time.